and worked across 4 continents, 8 geographies, working with stakeholders across 140+ countries, designing strategies for some of the most critical problems the world today is engulfed with, from elimination of female genital mutilation in Africa to sustainability intrinsic business model in Europe. Working on these global strategies also gave me a golden opportunity to work with global leaders and to really understand what really tickles their bone when they look at the world in the 21st century. I've realized and understood that there is this one thread that runs longitudinally and horizontally in all our global leaders. And that thread is all of them swear by the potency of authentic thinking, creativity, and out-of-box thinking in resolving world problems. They collectively believe that it is only through the power of creative thinking can we map the capacity of the human brain to make impossible possible. So while creativity is a very generic word, right? You and I use it on a daily basis. We write it in our essays, use it in our elevator pitches. We also write it in our dating apps while introducing ourselves to the potential other. But what does creativity actually mean? Now, if I had to break down creativity to really understand the ROI, what would be the components? So if I unpack creativity, what would it really include such that creativity transcends a thought into action, into vision, and into your and my reality? Hi everybody, my name is Pallavi, and for today's TED Talk, we will be unpacking creativity to really understand how can it really map the potential of the human mind to transcend all the boundaries of achievement that we could look at. Now, when I think of creativity, I look at it from a 5-prism lens, which I personally called FORCE, where F stands for fail, O stands for opportunism, R stands for resilient, C stands for being consistent and having conviction, and E stands for expertise. Now let's unpack this force and understand all these terms individually. Let's focus on fail first. Personally, I believe that failure and its acceptance towards failure is a bedrock of creativity which really unravels the potential of our mind. It's only when we take failure not personally but as a growth potential, we're able to look into the nooks and corners where creativity actually has a womb presence in. Now, I started in the workforce about a decade back. In my first job, it took me 2.5 years to get my first promotion when the established scale was 2 years. Cut to today, I skipped 2 promotions, established myself as a region lead for 1.2 billion USD global strategy, managing strategy across 8 countries in an unprecedented 8 months. So what changed from my first failure to today? The change happened when I started looking failure as an impediment, as a growth model for me to do better. This is where creativity peaked in. I realized that I was missing on something on the workforce, which was something known as peacocking. Have you heard about peacocking? No? So peacocking is a strategy that we evolve at work, which is a fine balance between bragging and self-promotion. So the way I talk, the way I dress up, the way I introduce myself is only through the medium of creativity, which has a bedrock in failure. That is why to fail and to accept that failure is an integral part of igniting creativity for achievement. Now let's come to the second, which is O of force, optimism. Now optimism doesn't really mean acha theek hai, positive thoughts manifest. No. Optimism towards learning and unlearning. We all are very optimistic about learning Excel seekh lo, various tech elements seekh lo. But it is so important to also unlearn certain habits which now today are redundant. I've always been an extremely result-oriented person. My leadership style is also driven a lot by data. But only when I really got into the thresholds of creativity, I realized that certain aspects of my learning, certain aspects of having that result-oriented approach was not really doing justice today. I was leading the government of India's Skill India Mission's empowerment scheme in India, governing the strategy for 1.2 million women in the country. While I was working on this strategy, the pilot that we ran had phenomenal results. But once we were on the ground, the strategy failed. It tanked. At this juncture, I went to my mentor to really understand what had happened. And the one thing that he told me to unlearn was to focus on process appreciation rather than just be result-oriented. And that was my switch towards creativity. When I switched, understanding that there are certain things I will have to unlearn, we were able to unpack this strategy with 25% more results than the projections. That is the beauty of having an optimistic attitude towards unlearning. Now let's come to the third element of force, which is R, resilient. We all know there are no shortcuts in life, right? We all need to be diligent, we all need to be resilient, we all need to put in the hard work and burn the midnight oil. But resilient takes a step forward, specifically in the spirit of creativity versus the human mind. Resilient is when I have the EQ to manage my hard work when the tough gets going, when it becomes really, really adverse, when all kind of elements are working against us. What happens then? Do I give up? Or do I really employ the favorite Indian word, jugaad, to get my work done? Across 165 countries, I was leading a UN initiative which is centric around how are we looking at cities. Are our cities really, really conducive to the needs and requirements of women? This project was called Her City. A phenomenal project that I have worked from the design to the implementation stage. Now, at a very important juncture at this project, 2 of my donors rescinded offers. So there was a deficit of the funds available. At this juncture, the executive committee decided, okay, let's stop the project. Now, because I had worked on the design stage, I realized this would be a havoc for the stakeholders. This is where my resilience peaked in. I used creativity to map quantitative and qualitative analysis, spoke to my local stakeholders to get this project going. And eventually, only because of resilience, we were creatively able to design a model in which local stakeholders were made a part of the process, which not only helped us to achieve the project and its completion, but to reduce the resource mobilization cost by 20%. It was a phenomenal, unprecedented stage for the UN and also set the ball rolling for the other global strategies that the UN has been leading, specifically in Africa and Middle East. Being resilient helps us to really, really design strategies and creativities which get those unheard of ideas in us to get the ball going, to get the job done. That is why resilient is such an important part of creativity. Let's come to the fourth part of the force, which is conviction. Now, we had 2 spiritual gurus today who told us a lot about conviction, about leap of faith. This is the Janma Bhoomi of Krishna, and what does Krishna say? Karma kar. Conviction is the bedrock of creativity. There will be 1,000 people who will tell you it's not going to work out. No, an engineer cannot become an entrepreneur cannot become a model. So I've had 2 careers up till now. First part of my career, I was a corporate lawyer working on public sector transformation, and then made this leap where people say, lawyers are boring people and say creative काम तो होगा नहीं, how can she become a consultant? I don't know who spread this rumor because I am not boring, for sure. But it was all these naysayers who said this is not going to happen. It was my conviction, no, this is what I really want. My value proposition is more than risk mitigation. I can solve problems. And that is when I was shifting gears, even after 5 years of serving as a senior associate in a top-tier law firm in the country, I started as an intern when I was making that switch. I knew I could use my creativity to stalk at the rock bottom and not give up. It was the power of conviction that I'll be able to do it. And hence, conviction becomes such a critical part of creativity. And then we come to the last, which is expertise. E. E of force, which is expertise. Now, we all know when the apple fell from the tree, Newton discovered gravity, right? But did it work in silos? One day, just Newton decided, okay, today I'm going to discover gravity. No. years and years of knowledge building. Years and years of developing that expertise on what works and what doesn't work. Knowledge, upskilling, getting your academics in place, working hard, and really building on that gravity is extremely important for that one day when creativity will shine. I think in the first talk also we heard Govindji talk about that not the entire notion around people are born with creativity is such a facade, right? And he's absolutely right. Everybody can be creative, but the foundation of it rests on building that expertise so that you and I can recognize what are the nuances of creativity. Had I not served as a lawyer, had I not completed my law and company secretary in the first go, always a distinction holder, I would have really not understood my value proposition was more than just being a lawyer. It is so important to build that expertise so that at least you can debate with yourself what is working and what is not working. And for that, building expertise is the groundwork of creativity. So 5 elements of creativity, we can unmask the potential of the brain. F, fail. And appreciate failure, do not make it a personal battle. O, be optimistic both about learning and unlearning, specifically about unlearning things that are redundant today. R, be resilient, specifically in the cases of exigencies and when things really get tough. C, have conviction, have belief, have that leap of faith. And E, develop that expertise, develop that knowledge sharing which can energize and ignite that creativity to transcend a particular thought into action, into doable things and into your reality. I would like to close the TED Talk with a personal anecdote that I received from Indira Nooyi while sharing a town hall with her. And she said that it is so important in life to be courageous, to upscale, and never be hesitant of traveling the road and not traveled. While creativity is not a destination, it is a way of life which maps throughout the things that you are doing, in how you arrange your cupboard to how you design global strategies. Make it a part of your life and I'm sure it will mask the unheard of potential of the human mind. Thank you very much.